Thank you for being with us up to part 3 and finale. By now you should be watching with friends that you shared the 2 parts already, right? Remind them to subscribe and share with their friends as well. Hey, who would want to miss out? Personal, I can't wait to see what is next. So, here it begins. We've reached the final part of our series. By now, you've seen the smaller cracks in the 15-minute city concept, and the deeper structural flaws that could turn convenience into control. But nothing we've covered so far compares to these last 5 issues. From advanced surveillance to the shadow of social credit systems, these are the scenarios that could fundamentally change the relationship between citizen and city. This is part 3, issues 5 to 1, the most alarming concerns yet. And whether you agree with the concept or not, by the end of this list you'll understand why so many are calling for caution, transparency, and safeguards before any of these laws become reality. Let's start with issue 5, and head straight into the heart of the controversy. Number 5. Rural isolation. Cities are the main focus of the 15-minute city concept, but what about the towns and rural communities outside them? This is one of the least discussed issues, and one of the most important. By making each city zone self-sufficient, you reduce the need for residents to travel outside it. That sounds fine if you live in the city, but for rural businesses, it's a nightmare. Fewer city dwellers visiting means less revenue for farms, markets, tourism operators, and regional suppliers. Now, take it a step further. If digital travel passes or credits are introduced, rural residents might find it harder to enter city zones without paying fees or using up their limited travel allowance. That could make it more difficult to access city-based healthcare, education, or specialized jobs. We've seen similar effects before. When large shopping malls replaced town centers in the late 20th century, many small rural main streets were gutted. The economic gravity shifted to the city, leaving smaller communities struggling to survive. A 15-minute city could unintentionally accelerate this process by locking urban economies inward. Proponents may argue, we can integrate rural supply chains into local zones. But that doesn't replace the flow of people, and it's people that keep rural economies vibrant. The real risk is that as cities become more inward-facing, rural communities become more isolated. And isolation, for a small town, often leads to decline. Number 4. Slower emergency help. Emergencies don't respect city boundaries. Fires, floods, medical crises, they happen anywhere, at any time. In a normal city, emergency vehicles take the fastest route, crossing neighborhood lines without a second thought. But in a tightly controlled 15-minute city, restricted travel routes could slow them down. If roads between zones are blocked by barriers, congestion controls, or checkpoint systems, those extra seconds or minutes can mean the difference between life and death. It's not just about ambulances, it's police, fire services, and even disaster response teams. Some city planners will say, we can program exceptions for emergency vehicles. That sounds good in theory, but what happens during a large-scale crisis? In the middle of a flood or major fire, you can't rely on digital permissions or automated gates to work perfectly. Technology fails. Networks crash. And when systems are over-engineered for control rather than flexibility, they break down at that very moment they are most needed, Murphy's Law. There's also the human factor. In an emergency, people often need to evacuate quickly. Movement restrictions could create dangerous bottlenecks as residents try to cross into other zones. Imagine a wildfire spreading toward your neighborhood, but the most direct escape route is across a restricted road. Do you or will you really want to wait for clearances? The core issue is this. A city designed for control is not always a city designed for resilience. In emergencies, speed and flexibility save lives. If those are sacrificed for the sake of managing daily movement, the cost could be catastrophic. Number 3. Dependency overload. In a 15-minute city, everything you need is supposed to be within reach: groceries, healthcare, education, workspaces. At first, that sounds empowering, but if the system is too centralized, it can actually make you more dependent, not less. Think about it. If all your essential services are inside your assigned zone, and those services are controlled or regulated by the city, then your quality of life depends on decisions made by local authorities or large corporate partners. If they decide to cut costs, reduce services, or change how access works, you have fewer alternatives. I don't want to live like this. You don't want to live like this. So, what does that leave us? There is a proverb often spoken: "He who feeds you controls you." During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw how dangerous overdependence can be. When supply chains broke down, or when restrictions shut certain facilities, people who relied on just one or two local sources for food or medicine suddenly found themselves vulnerable. The effects of such a breakdown of facilities are still felt today. In a fully enforced 15-minute model, that vulnerability could be built into the system. You're encouraged, or even required, to use approved shops, clinics, or schools. If prices rise, you pay more. If service quality drops, you have little recourse. And if you ever fall out of favor with the system, say, by failing to meet certain requirements, access to those services could be reduced or denied. Proponents will say, "But we are decentralizing services by spreading them across multiple zones." That's true in one sense, but for the individual, the system is still centralized at the zone level. You're only as independent as your local zone allows you to be. Alternatively, I can say each member of the zone is living on borrowed everything. They can switch off any of the sources of your livelihood they decide at their own discretion. Your consent as a citizen of the particular zone becomes worthless. Simply put, the less flexibility you have to choose alternatives outside your area, the more power the system has over your daily life. Number 2. Data exploitation. Every modern city collects data: traffic patterns, air quality, crime reports. But in a 15-minute city, the amount of data collected could grow exponentially. Cameras, sensors, and digital travel passes would create a constant stream of information about where you go, what you buy, and how you live. Officially, this data would be used to improve services and efficiency. But data is valuable, and where there's value, there's risk. Private corporations could buy access to anonymized datasets, then use them for targeted advertising or market control. In some cases, governments themselves could monetize or share the data with partners without your explicit consent. Then there's the risk of hacking. A centralized database of movement patterns, spending habits, and personal details is a goldmine for cybercriminals. If breached, it could expose not just your identity, but intimate details of your life, your routines, your friends, and your habits. How often do you hear that a particular government department or company that you're a client of has been hacked and personal information is compromised? This is the narrative you get told, but how sure can you be that it is exactly what happened rather than someone deliberately opened the door for someone to come in and grab the data? Some will argue that strict privacy laws can protect against this. But in practice, those laws often lag behind technology, and enforcement is inconsistent. Once the infrastructure exists, you're trusting both the government and every contracted private company involved to handle your information ethically forever. How much percentage can you assure yourself to trust the people who run your government or your financial institution? We've already seen what happens when this trust is broken, from massive credit bureau breaches to social media companies leaking user data. The stakes in a 15-minute city are even higher because the data isn't just about your online life, it's about your physical movements. Data, once collected, rarely disappears. And the more you give away, the easier it is for others to predict, influence, and control your choices. Number 1. The social credit shadow. This is the big one, the concern that ties all the others together. Surveillance, movement restrictions, digital IDs, data collection. Put these together, and you have the foundation for a social credit system. Now, social credit systems are most famously associated with China, where citizens are scored on their behavior, and those scores can determine access to loans, travel, jobs, and even certain freedoms. But the concept doesn't have to look identical to be dangerous. In a 15-minute city, it wouldn't take much for existing systems to be linked. Imagine your digital travel pass is tied to your personal profile. That profile could include your payment history, tax status, or even social media activity. A missed bill? Your travel credits are reduced. Publicly criticize a government policy? Your access to certain services is delayed. You might say, that would never happen here. But parts of this already exist in the West. In Canada, bank accounts were frozen for people involved in certain protests. In the EU, digital vaccine passports determined whether you could enter public spaces. In the UK, automated facial recognition has been used to flag individuals at events without their consent. In Australia, similar stories. Whatever you do, someone is watching. A social credit system doesn't appear overnight. It evolves, step by step, by linking more and more aspects of daily life to a centralized system. And because each step is framed as for your safety, for convenience, or for the environment, many people accept it without realizing what's being built. The danger of the social credit shadow isn't just losing specific freedoms. It's the chilling effect of knowing that every action you take, every choice you make, could affect your access to the essentials of life. That's not a free society. That's conditional living. And there you have it, the top 5 most alarming issues hidden in the 15-minute city laws. The concept isn't inherently evil. But as we've seen, when you combine control over movement, access, and information, you create a system that can be used for far more than just urban planning. It all comes down to this: how much freedom are we willing to trade for convenience? And once that trade is made, will we ever get it back? The conversation doesn't end here. It starts here. Share this series. Ask questions. Demand clarity. Because the only thing more dangerous than a flawed system is a public that isn't paying attention. Closing wrap, a call to awareness. So, are 15-minute cities the future of sustainable living, or a step toward unprecedented human control? The answer might depend not just on the design, but on the safeguards, and on how much power we are willing to hand over in the name of convenience. If we allow these systems to be built without transparency, without checks and balances, we may wake up one day in a city where the air is cleaner and the streets are quieter, but our choices are fewer, our privacy is gone, and our freedom is conditional. These are not sustainable living. These are open-wall prisons or caged living systems. I know most of you are still waiting to see borders with signs saying, you are entering Zone X or you are exiting Zone Z and credit applies, etc. That is not how it works, and while you are waiting, you don't even release you are already living in it. To know if you are already there, ask yourself, how much of my rights have I already given up for an empty promise? The 15-minute cities have themes such as high cost of living, mass surveillance, excessive policing, countless emergency laws without your consent, mass personal data collection on every citizen, making it difficult to take leave from work for a time for yourself without stress on how you're going to afford bills, cost of living, or your rent. All these sum up the tools used by government to have excessive power of your life. Control over your life, that is mainly the sense of the 15-minute city. It is all about making sure your movement or choices are restricted. The point here is to make sure the convenience we are promised doesn't come at the cost of rights we can't get back. Because once a cage is built, even a gilded one, it only takes the wrong set of hands to lock the door. Recap. After a thorough analysis, I hope you have captured the following in nutshell. Number 15. The travel trap. Sounds convenient, until you realize movement between zones could be restricted. Imagine fines or permits just to visit a friend across town. Number 14, eyes everywhere. More cameras, more checkpoints, more tracking. Welcome to the city where you're always on CCTV and not by choice. Number 13, digital gatekeeping. Some plans include digital IDs or travel credits. Run out and you're stuck. Literally. Number 12, the death of small business freedom. Zones inside the city thrive, but not businesses outside? Starved of customers. A rigged economy. Number 11, property price chaos. Homes inside the desirable zones skyrocket in price. Outside the zone, values tank. Social divide intensifies. Number 10, one-size-fits-all living. Centralized control means fewer personal choices. Where you shop, work, and relax could all be decided for you. Number 9, zone inflation. High demand drives up rent and food costs inside zones. The place meant for everyone becomes affordable for no one. Number 8, spontaneity shut down. Forget spontaneous road trips or last-minute plans. Leaving your area too often? You might pay the price, literally. Number 7, political power grab. Once these systems exist, any government can use them or abuse them. History says they usually do. Number 6, segregation by design. Zones could create pockets of wealth and pockets of neglect. A city divided by law. Number 5, rural isolation. Villages and rural towns outside city zones risk losing services, jobs, and opportunities. Number 4, slower emergency help. Restricted travel routes could delay ambulances, firefighters, and police when minutes mean lives. Number 3, dependency overload. With all resources controlled by the zone, you rely more on the system and less on yourself. Number 2, your data, their profit. Tracking your every move means someone, government or corporate, owns a detailed map of your life. Number 1, the social credit shadow. Surveillance, movement control, digital IDs. Put it all together, and you've got the blueprint for a Western social credit system. An end to one episode marks the beginning of another. You don't want to see it far. That's why you must hit the notification bell on this channel to stay informed when new one is uploaded. But before I go, remember this. The further society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it, stated by George Orwell.